Now, you might be wondering about the talk title for this week if you actually read it in the bulletin. It says, "Don't do anything until I get back." And actually, that is a quote from Steve Berman, also known as Swami Beyondananda. And the Swami said, "I believe we were all created to evolve. Otherwise, Jesus would have said, 'Now don't do a thing until I get back.'" So obviously, Jesus did not say that. He did say, "I am with you now, even to the ends of the earth." I am with you now. So we're not waiting for the second coming because Christ is already within us. Because Christ is not a person, it's an energy. It's an essence. It's a divine essence in the human experience. And so we believe that, and we practice that. Creation did not end in 6 days. Creation is happening every day. Evolution is happening every day. And as Ernest Holmes said, it is not something that we're evolving into, but rather what we are evolving from. Our position is one in which we are becoming more and more aware of something which existed before we were even conscious of it. Let me say that again. It is not something we're evolving into, it's something we're evolving from. Our position is one in which we're becoming more and more aware of something which existed before we were even conscious of it. So in other words, we're not creating something from nothing. We are evolving into more and more what we are meant to be, if we let ourselves do that. So, of course, you know my spiritual practice of listening to NPR. On Science Friday, one of my favorite inspirational programs, they had an astronaut by the name of Mike Massimino. Mike Massimino came from a working class family in Long Island. And he was 6 years old when the men walked on the moon, when Neil Armstrong was on the moon. And he thought, this is the most important thing going on. I have to be a part of this. I have to be an astronaut. Either that or a New York Met. He was 6. By the 7th grade, he figured out he wasn't going to be a New York Met. But by the time he graduated from high school, he'd totally forgotten about the astronaut thing. But when he graduated from college with a degree in mechanical engineering, that idea of the astronaut came back. And so he continued his education. He went to MIT to get his master's degree and PhD in mechanical engineering. And he attempted 3 times to get into the astronaut program and failed because of his vision. So he thought, am I going to let this get me down? This is my dream. I know something in me says I am meant to do this. And so he did some kind of exercise program with his eyes. And after doing this program, he passed the test. So passing the test still didn't mean he was going to be in the program because there's high competition to be an astronaut. But somehow, maybe because he had been trying for so long and was so persistent for so long, he actually made it into the program on the shuttle. And he was on the shuttle twice, fixing the Hubble telescope. So he got to go outside of the shuttle and be working out in space. And he also learned that sometimes it just takes a little elbow grease to get something done. I mean, he came from a family where, if it was stuck, you hammered on it to get it unstuck. And of course, he's out in space, and guess what? He's got a stripped bolt on the Hubble telescope, this multi-billion-dollar piece of thing, and he thinks, what am I going to do? Well, I'm gonna give it a yank, and sure enough, he got it loose. So he was the perfect person for that job. But while he was up there, he got to see Earth. He got to see the curvature of the Earth. He's 350 miles above the Earth, and he sees the curvature of the Earth. And when he saw that vision of the Earth below, he thought, human beings aren't meant to see this. That was his first thought. And his tears welled up in his eyes, which is not a good thing in a spacesuit. So he tried to catch himself. He tried to stop the tears. He looked away. And then he looked back and he thought, this must be the view from heaven. And then he looked away again. He was working on something, and he looked back again and he thought, no, this is not the view from heaven. This is heaven, looking at the earth. This is heaven. This is paradise. We're living in heaven now. We're living in paradise. From the perspective of space, there are no borders. There are no religions. There are no politics. There's none of that stuff. There's only the beauty of this magical planet that we inhabit. Nothing else. And when we look at what's going on the earth, we say, paradise? I don't think so. But who's created this hell? Human beings have created this by believing that they are separate from one another and separate from God. By believing that we're separate, we have created these rules and laws of separation, and we've created these wars and famines and all of this stuff. We did this to ourselves. I remember when I was in the earthquake in Guatemala, 7.5 earthquake, people are dying, and I'm laying there when the earth is shaking all over the place, and I thought, well, there's nothing we can do about natural disasters, because we call them disasters, but they're just nature doing its thing to balance itself. Whether it's a hurricane or whether it's an earthquake or whether it's a tornado, it is the planet bringing itself back to balance. It is balancing things out. And we're just in the midst of it. But I thought, as I was laying there, shaking, and I thought, but in wars, we do this to ourselves. We bring ourselves this terror on purpose. So how can we heal this? We can evolve consciously. We can consciously step into practices that allow us to evolve our consciousness, which is the place where everything begins. Everything we're seeing right now is an effect of a cause in consciousness. And the only way to change the effect is to change the cause, and the first place to change the cause is in our consciousness. So how do we do that? Well, the book this month is Peace is Every Step by Thich Nhat Hanh. And he talks about the involvement of our emotions, how our emotions can carry us away. He says the way that we can create heaven or hell is with our feelings. He says there's 3 kinds of feelings: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And the thing is, when we have a pleasant feeling, woo-wee, we enjoy that pleasant feeling. I just saw that movie, The Queen of Katwe, and about the little girl who is winning the chess tournaments. And when they win the chess tournament, They are singing and dancing. Woo! You know, they are not going, oh, I'm so happy I won the tournament. They're like, woohoo! You know, they experience their joy completely and fully. They embody that joy. They sing it. They dance it. Now, that's wonderful when we have a pleasant experience, a joyful experience, a loving experience. We want to revel in it. But sometimes we have these other experiences that are of the unpleasant kind. So, for instance, one of the big unpleasant kinds is fear. And that's, you know, there's a lot of that going on right now in our media, in all over the place. There's just like, everybody should be afraid all the time. And we're not buying into that. So what he says is that there is a methodology to use for this. The first thing is we do not deny the feeling. We don't say, oh, that's anger, I have to push it away. Oh, that's fear, I have to push it away. No, we don't push it away. We feel it. We say, oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, yeah, it's fear, all right. And so what do we do? What do we do? He says, when we observe our feelings mindfully, we're not drowned by them. We're not washed away by them. We're not swept away by them. We're not terrorized by them. So what we do is we recognize each feeling as it arises. We look at it, we recognize it, we say, you know, yeah, that's what's coming up for me. And the thing is, when we're experiencing that emotion, it is who we are. We can't deny it, because when we do, if we deny that emotion, we're denying ourself, because that emotion is part of ourself. So we don't deny it because we don't want to deny ourselves. So the first thing we have to do is to become one with that feeling. So we can say, hello, fear. How are you today? When we do that mindfully, what we're doing is we're bringing our mindfulness together with the emotion. We're bringing the mindfulness together with the emotion, and so they can shake hands and become friends and become one. Now, it might feel frightening, but the thing is, when we have the mindfulness with our fear, we realize that we're more than our fear. We realize this other thing, this mindfulness thing, helps us to realize we're more than our fear. And we do this by breathing. Breathing in. Remember last week we did some conscious breathing. Well, this week we're doing it again. Breathing in. We say to ourselves while we're breathing in, so that we can block out all the other stuff, breathing in, I know that there is fear in me. Breathing in, I know there is fear in me. And then breathing out, I know that there is fear in me. I just breathe in, I know that there is fear in me. Breathing out, I know that there is fear in me. And the thing is, the more we practice our mindfulness, the stronger the mindfulness becomes. And so the fear begins to diminish. So the next thing we do is to calm the feeling. As our mindfulness is taking care of our fear through this conscious breathing, we begin to calm it down. And we can say, breathing in, I calm the activities of my body and mind. Breathing out, I calm the activities of my body and mind. He says, your calm feeling, just by being with it, is like a mother holding her crying baby. Feeling the mother's tenderness, the baby will calm down and stop crying. The mother is your mindfulness. Now, if the mother is distracted and trying to calm the baby while she's doing something else, that doesn't work. She has to be fully present with the baby. And when she's fully present with the baby, then the baby feels that presence, and that helps to calm the baby down. So we don't deny the feeling. We don't think it's unimportant. We don't try to avoid it. We have to be one with it. And we just, breathing out, I calm my fear. Breathing out, I calm my fear. Now, step 4 is to release the feeling. Because you are calm, you feel at ease, in the midst of your fear, you know that your fear will not overwhelm you. When you know that you can take care of your fear, it's already reduced to a minimum. When you know that you have power over it, when you know that you have a choice, then it is not so powerful. It is not so intimidating. He says calming and releasing are just medicines for the symptoms. Now you have the opportunity to go deeper. So now we're in the 5th step of this process. You look deeply at your feeling of fear to see what is wrong. Like the mother who calmed her baby, she has to look deeply at him to see what is wrong. She might realize that this baby's suffering has many causes, inside and outside of his body. When she sees what is causing him to cry, she can do something about it. By looking deeply, we can see what will help us transform the feeling. We can look deeply and find the causes of our fears, which are often based in inaccurate perceptions. In this movie, The Queen of Katwe, at one point, this girl is in a tournament. Now, she's from a slum, and I mean slum, where there is open trenches for toilets. They have to go and get water in big containers, and they just have the simplest, basic roof over their head and a paraffin candle, and just basic stuff. And so she's sitting across from this woman who's wearing gold earrings and has gold rings on her fingers and is very well made up and put together, playing this game of chess. And she begins to get intimidated by this. She begins to get fearful that she doesn't belong there. What is she, this girl from the slum who can't even read, playing for the championship of this chess tournament? Who is she to do that? And her teacher can see her starting to withdraw, can see her start to shut down, and so he stands up and yells, which is not something you do in a chess tournament. He says, "You belong here. You belong here." He was reminding her of who she is. That in spirit, those two people were absolutely equal, but in this particular game, she had the advantage. She had the skill. She belonged there. And so that was the cause of her fear. And so going deeper and seeing the cause of that fear and realizing that she did have the power to win this game. She did have the power to take it all away. Our inner guide can show us the way. We have that resource, that infinite mind within us that has the answers to all of these questions, if we will be mindful about what's going on and what is the highest and best thing to do. If we can elevate our consciousness into that space suit above the earth, we can see a greater truth unfolding. So I want to talk about how we overcome our anger, because I know that there is something tonight which probably will raise anger in many people. And so I thought it might be helpful to see how anger might be spiritually addressed. So first of all, we're going to do the breathing. right? We're breathing in. I know that anger is in me. Breathing out. I know that I am my anger. Breathing in, I know that anger is within me. Breathing out, I know that I am my anger. Now we follow our breathing closely while we mindfully observe our anger. And when we do that, it can no longer monopolize our consciousness. Because Thich Nhat Hanh says anger is like a blazing flame that burns up our self-control and causes us to say and do things that we regret later. Right? So true. So he says, anger and hatred are the materials from which hell is made. Anger and hatred are the materials from which hell is made. So we want to transform our anger. All right, so he says the first thing we do is when we're angry, we're usually not inclined to return to ourselves. We're all about the person or the situation that we're angry about, right? We're all about that person who's making us angry, and we think about their hateful aspects, their dishonesty, their cruelty, their maliciousness, all of these things. We think about all of those things that make them so, so terrible. Now, the dishonesty, the cruelty, maliciousness, whatever it is, it may be true, may be real, may be imaginary, may be exaggerated. But the root of the problem is anger itself. And so we have to come back and look first inside ourselves. So it's best not to listen or look at the person who is causing the anger. Can you turn off the TV? Okay, so so the first thing is not to look at or listen to the person causing the anger. He says, like firemen, we have to put water on the fire first before we start looking at who set the fire. Okay, so breathing in, I know that I'm angry. Breathing out, I know that I must put all my energy into caring for my anger. That I must put all my energy into caring for my anger. So when anger is taking us over, we realize it's ourself. So suppressing it or chasing it away is not fruitful. So we just are aware that anger is an energy in us. But it's sort of like compost. It may be disgusting. It may be smelly, but there's life in it. It can bring forth flowers. But we have to recognize it. He says we have to be like organic gardeners and just realize that the composting is part of the process. So we get into the anger, we realize that it's who we are in this moment, and we accept it. We're not afraid of it, we're not rejecting it. We just think that it is compost that has the power to bring forth something beautiful. That's a different thing to contemplate. He says, if we can accept our anger, we already have some peace and joy. And gradually, we can transform anger completely into peace, love, and understanding. We have the power. We have the choice. Do we want to evolve past the anger and the hatred? We have that choice. It's part of our evolutionary process. We evolve through these practices that allow us to connect with that inner essence that is wanting to evolve through us, to reveal the heaven that is here on earth. Ernest Holmes says, the furtherance of evolution depends upon our ability to sense a unity with nature and her forces. When the knowledge of this unity comes to all, the tread of armies will cease, and the bugle call will echo the soft notes of brotherly love. Our affirmation for this week is, I allow spirit to evolve as me. 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 And so it is.